Tonight, the Prime Minister's whirlwind European visit. What did it really produce?
And here at home, a heated debate over home defense and the self-checkout standoff that everyone's talking about. From Montreal, I'm Eddie Tekalik.
And I'm Gary MacDonald. This is the conversation we should be having, honest, unfiltered Canadian.
And we want you to join the conversation. Post your comments and we will include it possible tonight.
Alrighty. So it's time to move along and let's get the conversation started, Eddie.
Yeah.
Let's start overseas. Prime Minister Mark Carney's European trip made headlines, from talks on German submarines for the Canadian Navy to renewing our NATO troop commitment in Latvia, and even exploring LNG export deals, especially with Germany, all while removing retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods. So what does it mean for Canada at home and abroad? Let's discuss this. Now, first of all, Eddie, before we get into some of the other aspects of it, when he popped up in Europe this past week, I kind of thought to myself, okay, what's this about? Because if you recall, the big European summit with Zelensky at the White House last week, Prime Minister Carney was nowhere to be found. He was not invited, as far as I know.
Right.
And I kind of thought, when all of a sudden here he is over in Europe the next week, and he's out and visiting various countries, taking part in the Ukraine National Day, I kind of thought, okay, is he over there just trying to really work a glorified photo op and detract from what some pundits were saying about him not being invited, being left out? Anyway, as the week wore on, and he left early this morning, I think, to come back to Canada. Long story short, it seems that he was quite busy, and he's not the only senior government official over there, because our industry minister is over there. A couple
Melanie
of actually. Yeah, a couple of other ministers are over there as well. And we also have a trade minister, or another minister, I can't remember his title, in Brazil, talking to the Brazilians this week. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, they're spread out all over the place. So what I thought about Carney's visit to Europe initially, I take back that part of it.
All right. So what was your just recap of what your initial thought was?
My initial thought was it was glorified photo op to kind of offset the fact that he was left out at the European summit at the White House last week. However, did he really have to be there anyway? Because originally it was Zelensky going to the White House to talk to the president. And we all know how that went earlier this year, when they ganged up on Zelensky. And if you recall, a number of the European leaders very quickly hustled their butts to Washington to be there with Zelensky and show a unified level of support. And I believe a couple of them actually came off vacation to make the trip to Washington and deliver a not so subtle message to the man who occupies the Oval Office in Washington.
Right.
That there is unity in Europe, and they're there with Zelensky. They stand with Zelensky and Ukraine. So, in some respects, even though we've been a strong supporter of Zelensky and the Ukrainians, and we've delivered a lot of equipment and money, by the same token, that White House session, the more I thought about it, the more I thought there was really no need for us to be there.
No. Well, I mean, first of all, we briefly talked about it in our show last week. There was no way that the name we will not speak of tonight, namely the Orange Man, wanted Carney down there. He obviously doesn't like him. He doesn't respect them, I don't think. I think he recognizes the strength that the Canadian government is showing at this particular time in terms of not buckling the way he expected them to. And there, I don't think he didn't want him there to add fuel to the fire, basically. And the fire, basically, being the leaders of the European community coming down arm in arm, essentially inviting themselves to the White House and basically telling El Presidente that we are going to be there with President Zelensky, arm in arm. As you saw, as Zelensky was escorted out of the limousine and into the White House, first thing that happened is, of course, Trump ushers him into the golden room. Let's call it that for now. It's no longer the Oval Office; it's the golden room, and sat him down for a fireside chat while he hid his hands. And Zelensky held his own in there. Totally different approach in the Oval Office to how they spoke to President Zelensky, respectfully. I think his minion Vance was basically told not to say anything. And then they went to business. And, from the news reports that we've seen, from the statements that came out of all countries during that session, they did not let the man get away with anything. They were very firm. They were clear in terms of what has to be established in order for a peace plan, a ceasefire, especially the Chancellor from Germany, that the ceasefire was absolutely necessary before any sort of peace treaty is signed, which makes complete sense, and very adamant about it. The Italian Prime Minister was very supportive of it. The Finnish Prime Minister was also extremely supportive of it, even though the Trumpster forgot that he was actually there at the table in front of him. So I found it a very, very unique and a confident level of support for a country that's presently under siege, and they made their message clear to Mr. Trump, as you had said. And Canada not being there, I think you're right. I'm not sure what they would have been able to add to the discussion besides what all the other leaders of Europe were already saying. And much of that has already been expressed by Prime Minister Carney. And you equally hear a lot of comments from the other premiers of Canada and Ontario as well. I mean, Ford has commented on the plight of the Ukrainians. And you know what? He wasn't there. So what? Trump didn't want him there. Fine. I think he was very well represented by a common voice by the European leaders. And there was obviously a decision made prior to that Prime Minister Carney was going to fly out to the Ukraine and celebrate their independence. Wasn't publicized, and it made perfect sense because a trip like that has to be under high security. It's not something you want to publish. Say, hey, I'm flying to the Ukraine tomorrow to meet President Zelensky and celebrate Ukrainian independence. He went there, had an agenda, and then he followed up on his European tour. So you know what, Gary? I agree with you. Last week I was kind of like, oh wow, what's going on here? Okay, Trump didn't like him; he didn't invite him. But after watching the leaders of the European community stand not behind President Zelensky, stand arm in arm with him, and up against the Orange Man, and made it very clear as to what the president of the United States has to tell his boss, being Putin. This is what we want to drive towards a peace plan. We got to have a ceasefire prior to that, and we'll see what happens, Gary. But I was very pleased with the outcome from the meetings in the White House for sure.
Yeah, very much so. So forge ahead to this week and the Prime Minister's trip to Europe, and let's look at a few things. For example, he covered potential German submarine purchases, renewing Canada's troop commitments, as we said, which is a NATO commitment as well. Exploring LNG export opportunities and as we said, removing those retaliatory tariffs. which we'll get into in a few minutes. But the LNG export opportunities this week. Also, Carney dropped the very broad and open hint that within the next 2 weeks and probably next week, we will learn the first of the two major infrastructure projects that the government is going to move ahead in the national interest. And they are going to be developing a new port in the north.
In Manitoba.
Churchill.
Was it Churchill? Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And a new port area here in Montreal, because Montreal,
to be able to deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So those announcements are coming, and he did basically say so yesterday. So we know that, okay, here we go, the first two announcements of this new national security program, and it's port related infrastructure. And of course, going for the north, which is vastly undeveloped at the moment, is a smart move, because even with global warming, it's going to become a little easier to move around in the northern part of this country. And we're very rich in resources. And speaking of that, let's look at the submarines. He toured the dockyard plant of the name just escapes me now, but a major company that, and I believe it's
Tyson Group or something like that.
Yeah, it's a partnership with Denmark or Finland,
Norway,
or somebody. Yeah, Norway.
I think
Anyhow,
it's Norway.
He toured the facilities, and he came back, and now the Germans have been shortlisted along with South Korea. Yeah.
Right.
So we're down to, very quickly, a short list for 12 submarines, because, as the Prime Minister said, he wants submarine capability coast to coast to coast, which is something we haven't had, I don't think, in the history of our Navy, really. And so this is really interesting to see how quickly he's moving on that side of it. Meantime, Industry Minister Melanie Joly is also over there and touring, and she did tour the company that's building, which jets were they? The name escapes me.
The Gripinese.
Okay.
Yeah, Saab Gripinese.
Yeah. So she and in an interview I watched this.
Yeah.
I'm here.
I don't see it. It's just me on the screen.
Oh, sorry. Oh yeah, okay. I got talking and I.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah. I thought.
Yeah,
it's
the Saab.
My
It's
feet
the Saab Gripinese. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, where were we? Squirrel.
We were at the. We were at we were Melanie Joly's visit to the Saab manufacturing plant where they make the Gripens.
Yeah, and she was impressed, and she was the interviewer was pressing her on would we really give consideration now to those planes and maybe cancel the contract for the F-35s, and she very delicately danced around it. And she said, it's really not a decision for me to announce or for me to make. It's, there are a number of ministers involved, including the defense minister and ultimately the prime minister. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. And like, I personally, I would really love to see that contract canceled, and we go with the Swedish jets for sure, for a number of reasons, including security and the fact that we don't have to put up with the whims of somebody who, as Doug Ford puts it, gets up in the morning and cheese slides off the cracker and we're off in another direction altogether. So,
Yeah.
you
There are
know,
so many
there,
wins. I mean, that's a whole other show in itself, right?
yeah, exactly. So, you know, you have that side of it. And you know what? I do have a graphic here. Let's bring it up so we can just kind of look at it. So we've
Oh, nice.
talked about the German subs. We've talked about the renewed commitment of Canadian troops in
Mm-hmm.
Latvia for another 3 years. And they interviewed a couple of soldiers today who were really pleased to hear that A, the commitment was there, and B, that a commitment was made by the Prime Minister to get them the spare parts and other equipment that they need to do the job. Because right now, apparently, some of the equipment they have over there is basically ancient, and they're having a hard time now sourcing spare parts. And that's how successive governments, and I would argue that it started in the Harper era in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we go into the Trudeau decade, and he had no idea as to what was needed, what was proper for the military. And so, you know, it was just a forgotten item. He was too busy chasing his rainbows with electric vehicles
Yeah.
and other environmental fantasy dreams. So then we've got the discussions about supplying liquefied natural gas, and also one that kind of seems to have slipped under the radar a bit, and that is critical minerals. And those, you know, the LNG and
Yeah.
the critical minerals are tied to those port infrastructure projects to be announced within 2 weeks. And of course,
Yeah.
I have a clip of Carney talking about this and talking about, how did he refer to it? Something about our friends to the south learned about critical minerals. I forget how he phrased it now, but it was a subtle, not so subtle little dig, I think, along the way.
Mm-hmm.
I have to give
Mm-hmm.
him full marks for that as well. So let's just bring up the Prime Minister and some of his remarks from Europe.
Troilus Gold Company, which is a Canadian mining company, has signed a long-term copper supply agreement with Hamburg-based Arubis AGA, one of Europe's leading smelter and recycling groups. In Quebec, Torngat Metals has entered into an MOU with VAC, which is a leader in global rare earth magnets, a lesson that our partners to the south, the Americans, have learned about the vulnerabilities in the rare earth magnet supply chain. So we're creating a rare earth magnet supply chain between Quebec, between Canada and Germany. And then in addition, RockTech Lithium, which is a Canadian-German clean tech company, accelerating decarbonization through a lithium agreement. So there's high-level declarations of intents, there's action plans, but what really matters is these transactions at the bottom. There's a common theme. We're moving from a world where there's exposure to vulnerability. The vulnerability and instability is, I think, the norm in the global economy, global geopolitics. But countries like Germany, Canada, in partnership with the European Union, can provide stability and prosperity for our citizens. And this, whether it's in what we've worked on today, whether it's providing security guarantees, whether it's Volkswagen's investment in Ontario or Bombardier's an aircraft hub here in Frankfurt, this partnership provides a rock and a foundation for that shared prosperity.
So that was a news conference with the German Chancellor, and that was yesterday. And so he outlined, and I didn't realize, especially on the critical mineral side, the Quebec connections until he brought them up in his comments during that clip. So, there you have it. Like there are so many things across this country that have been so reliant on just the north-south corridor, and there are markets around the world, and that's why the person in the White House has been mouthing about us becoming the 51st state from the get-go, and that's because he wants our resources. He doesn't really care about us. He wants our resources and our water. That's what it's all about. So that was the Prime Minister kind of summing up everything as far as some of the things elsewhere during his jaunt, as well as in particular in Germany. Now, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was critical. He said that most of what the Prime Minister was talking about was really talk and no hard signed contracts and no hard commitments of money or anything like that. That it was just a lot of activity, trying to look active and making it look like, we're accomplishing something, active to accomplish. Well, you have to be active to accomplish. If you're not active, you're not going to accomplish anything. And if you're sitting on the sidelines and just kind of blowing hot air, and I hope that's not where we're going to be going with, I hope that's where we're not going to be going with the Conservatives going forward. So anyway, we shall see from that perspective. So we have that. Let's see. Some bilateral agreements were renewed. We also were showcasing our leadership in NATO and Euro trade policy, and shoring up support for a cooperative energy policy. So I would have to say that even if there weren't any hard deals signed, doors were opened, and we are now front and center even more so. And I would suggest that the Prime Minister and our country are now, the Prime Minister has respect, and our country now is gaining back respect, and we're slowly but surely now once again being looked upon as a player on the world stage. So let's go to a couple of comments. Eddie's having some problems.
Technical
Eddie,
issues. Yeah.
technical issues on your end? Everything solid now?
I'm hoping so.
Yeah, it seems to be. So let's just see here now. Bring up a couple of comments. Where are we? Okay, Nancy says, I agree. Thank you, Nancy. And then we go to Greg. Greg, what truly is sad to see is that it has taken the fiasco south of the border for Canada to explore other trading partners' options, and really up until now for no really great reason. It just goes to show, go back, there we go. It just goes to show you that diversification with our allies who love Canada should have been the way to go long ago. Absolutely bang on, Greg, and as Nancy said, she agrees. Bang on with that comment. And 10 years of crickets from Ottawa and this country really put a dent in how we are looked upon in the world, and how much respect we had lost during that period.
And our credibility as well as a nation, as part of the G7. We really lost our credibility the last 2.5 mandates. We just off the map completely.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we're coming back, and I just hope that Poilievre sees this opportunity, the second chance he's been given to sit in the House of Commons and, yes, hold the government accountable, but also offer reasonable suggestions and engage in negotiation instead of trying to produce the 8-second social media clip. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sorry that time is gone. Just give it up. Give it up
Yeah.
completely. So I'm really feeling pretty good about the Prime Minister's trip to Europe. I am feeling really very good about Industry Minister Melanie Joly still over there and still
Great.
knocking on doors. And as she said, a lot of her job is to open the doors, make sure we know who the right people are. So when our businesses go over and start discussing opportunities, they're put in contact with the right parties from the get-go, which
Yeah, I was
can
just
only
looking at
lead
my
to.
notes here. She actually took our Secretary of Defense, Stephen Fuhr, with her as part of the delegation. They got the full tour with the Saab group. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but Saab group has already partnered with Bombardier in building something called the GoldenEye surveillance aircraft. So there's already a relationship between our Canadian military and government and Saab, which I'm sure
I
will help with the bid.
Yeah, that's interesting because I heard something. She mentioned something about that in her interview tonight that I was watching, and I was
Hmm.
doing some other things, so I didn't catch all of it. Like I was trying to absorb as much as I could, and I was not aware of that partnership. And you know, it's perfect. It's a perfect partnership and a perfect opportunity for Bombardier to move forward in that area, and also the Swedish company, like they turn out good product. So you know, can you imagine what they're going to do with that, and how that's going to turn out along the way? It's going to be great. So that's that side of it. Now the other side of it is, of course, last Friday, I think it was, when the Prime Minister announced that he was going to remove most of the retaliatory tariffs. I was not a happy camper. As a matter of fact, I was really pretty bitter. I get where he's coming from when he talks about the level of tariffs that we have right now, even without any sort of formal agreement other than Kuzma. I get where he's coming from because when you average it all out, he says that we have the lowest tariff rate of any of the countries who have signed the new deals. Although no paperwork has come out of those new deals, just a lot of hot air. So here is the Prime Minister last Friday, and I think we need to talk about this just a bit. We won't spend a lot of time on it, but here's what he had to say.
The objectives of Canada's new government have been constant. First, to protect Canadian workers and their families. Second, to reinforce the competitiveness of Canadian businesses. And thirdly, to build the strongest economy in the G7. Our negotiations with the United States have been taking place as the U.S. has been in the process of fundamentally transforming all of its trading relationships. In a positive and very important development earlier this month, just a few weeks ago, the United States reaffirmed a core commitment to our free trade agreement, CUSMA, by reinforcing that those Canadian exports to the United States that are compliant with that agreement, that are compliant with CUSMA, will not be subject to U.S. IEEPA tariffs. As a result of that decision by the United States, the actual U.S. tariff rate on Canadian goods is 5.6%. Compare that to the 16% global average. That remains the lowest amongst all of the United States trading partners. And more than 85% of Canada-US trade is now tariff-free. So let's be absolutely clear. Canada currently has the best trade deal with the United States. And while it's different from what we had before, it is still better than that of any other country. So as we work to address outstanding trade issues with the United States, it's important, it's vital. We do everything we can to preserve this unique advantage for Canadian workers, Canadian businesses. And doing so will require both building on a soon-to-be revised CUSMA, our free trade agreement with the U.S. and Mexico, as well as developing a new form of trade and security partnership with the United States. In this context, and consistent with Canada's commitment to CUSMA, I'm announcing today that the Canadian government will now match the United States by removing all of Canada's tariffs on U.S. goods specifically covered under CUSMA.
And I walked away from watching that really bitter, pretty emotional and bitter. However, over the weekend, cooler heads prevailed, and I had a chance to think about it. I understood what he was saying the day of the announcement and how he justified it. I get it. And everyone this week in the business community and in the trade world that I've watched have all said the same thing, that this seems to have cleared the log jam, because you had Dominic LeBlanc meeting with Lutnick yesterday, a meeting that was scheduled for an hour and went a little over 90 minutes, and both of them coming out smiling, and Dominic LeBlanc suggesting it was a very constructive meeting. And then there was a meeting today as well with some senior government officials. And again, it's like Canada Week right now in Washington, not necessarily the White House, but in Washington. And there seems to be a lot of movement around the trade front. So Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre said when Carney dropped the digital services tax without so much as a pat on the head kind of thing, that we should have received something in return. And then following this announcement last week, Poilievre again says, the Prime Minister in his election campaign was elbows up. And now it seems like he's elbows down. And again, we gave concessions and got nothing in return. And outwardly, I agree. That's the appearance of it. But when you listen carefully to what the Prime Minister said, and then this week, where really the only negativity coming out of it was initially from me whenever I talked about it, and Poilievre. And I'm thinking, the more I thought about it, the more I said, you know what? Okay, maybe he is playing the cards. And LeBlanc last week said, we still have lots of cards. Okay, all right, you're in a card game. And somebody related Carney's moves to moves in a game of chess. I don't play chess. I've watched and watched and watched people play chess. And, I just don't get it. I just have not ever really picked up on all of the strategy and everything. But anyhow, the log jam seems to have been cleared, and there's a lot of activity on the trade front between Canada and the U.S. right now. And when you consider the fact that everything thrown in together and then pulled out with CUSMA, that we have a tariff rate of about 6% tops versus the 15, 20% amounts elsewhere in the world, even with the new deals that have been announced, then okay, you know what? All right, we're doing okay. But we
Yeah.
still have
Well,
orange juice sales have plummeted. I watched an interview with the head of the American Distillers Association tonight, and you know their sales are way off, and they're really trying to now get the Canadian provinces to open up and start stocking again. Well, BC, all BC did was remove any American booze from red states. That's what they did from the beginning. Alberta and Saskatchewan, a couple of months ago, started restocking American booze. Today, God love him, Doug Ford said, until the tariffs are removed completely, everything, or we have a new trade deal that's fair, there will be no American booze at the LCBO.
yeah.
Here in Quebec, we have what, about $3-4 million worth of American booze in stock, and about $300,000 worth of that, like some of the
Yeah.
wines and that. Their best before date is quickly approaching, and they're going to have to dump it, and they're kind of
Yeah.
wondering what they're going to do with it. Yeah, like wow. But I'll tell you something. One thing about this, like at least for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people, if we get a trade deal, even by the end of the year, a new trade deal, I'm still not going to trust it 100% because of who we're dealing with. And secondly, I've been insulted enough as a Canadian that there are a lot of things that I've switched, you know, where I could from US products, and I'm not going back. I'm going to continue supporting the Canadian companies that I have found that are providing a service that's equal to or better than what I was getting from the US companies. And we have much better privacy laws here than in the US. And we also have Canadian currency instead of paying in US denomination, and you know, paying the exchange rate, and then what the banks take for A, converting it, and B, processing it. You know.
Right.
So
I'm with you on
why
that one.
why would I go back? And I've discovered a couple of Canadian whiskeys, for example, that I quite enjoy now, and I don't even miss. Like a couple of my favorite bourbons, or what used to be my favorite bourbons, don't miss them. Now we're, you know, the other day, like I found BC cherries at Metro. Why haven't we had BC cherries for years in
Yeah.
Metro and every other Sobeys and, you know, IGA, you
Well, you
name
know
it.
what it is? It's also consumer pressure. I mean, the
Yeah.
grocery stores realize that, you know, individuals like you and I, and there's millions out there, that stopped buying American produce, and they were sitting on their shelves. Their produce was rotting. Their produce was rotting, chucking it away, and they realized that, boy, we better start bringing in some different suppliers. And you know what? It's giving some of these companies in Canada better access to the grocery chains right across the country because of this. I mean, grocers have to fill their shelves, and they have to be able to sell. And you know what? People are willing to buy. I've seen some major sales in some of our grocery stores in Montreal. Cherries, for example, from California. No, I don't think so. And they were dirt cheap. I've never seen anything so dirt cheap. Still didn't buy them. And about a week and a half later, all of that was removed, and lo and behold, cherries from BC. A little more expensive than the sale that they had, but you know what? Thank you very much. Here's my Canadian dollar to buy Canadian cherries. Very happy to do that.
Well, Deborah couldn't believe how excited I was about getting that bag of cherries and getting, well, I didn't wait to get home before I dug into it. However, she had not had a cherry from BC. And so when we got home and she tried them, she just kind of looked at me. Now I can see what you've been talking about. Wow. And the beauty of it is, when I worked out in BC, the 2 years I was out there, cherry season, There was a listener who had a couple of cherry trees in their backyard, and they would bring me in a big black garbage bag full of cherries. Like, and I just put them in the newsroom by my desk, and I just all day. And I take some home to have it at home at night. Like, just love them. Anyway, I
Yeah.
digress as usual. I don't know what's with me
Well,
today, but anyway, we
well,
have
you
a
know what?
comment from Nancy
Oh,
who
great.
says, the Prime Minister chess player, in my opinion, trumps Trump. Trump's Trump,
That's
the
not
card play.
okay.
Good
Nice.
one, Nancy.
Yeah.
I
You,
like
you know
that.
what? Gary? At the end of the day, we've talked about this a little, and Prime Minister Carney has mentioned this on a few occasions, and Premier Ford has as well. Right now, we're in the business of doing what's best for Canada. Doesn't matter what that is,
Yeah,
Gary. Let's
that's
do
right.
what's best for Canada. You know what? If that's conveying a message to the supreme leader of the United States, conveying a message to him that, yeah, you know what, we're kind of backing off a step or two, while in parallel we continue to do the business of building Canada. I mean, those two major projects that are going to be announced, and I think he's going to be using Bill C5 to push them through, which is great to see. The trip out to Europe, his industries minister continuously meeting and building relationships for drumming up new business. Um, let's build Canada while we're placating the orange guy. Pretend
Mhm.
we're kissing the ring and just keep on doing what we need to do. And you know what? Prime Minister Carney is right. We cannot completely cut off the United States because they're still a major trading partner with us. But we
Yeah,
don't
they're
have
the
to.
largest
But we don't
market.
have to. We don't have to put in $70 out of every 100 into an American company's pockets. Well, let's
Right.
back off from that. Let's get a balance, whatever we have to do. And that's what I'm hopeful for. And that's what I believe the strategy is: building Canada while trying to sustain a relationship with the inconsistency of the leadership of the United States. And moving forward with this. Look, there are a lot of jobs on the line, right across the country, and they're all depend. And all these industries are very, very dependent on what Prime Minister Carney is doing today, what he's doing tomorrow, and what he's doing 3 or 4 months from now, because of the changing circumstances in the United States. And whether it's Carney or whether it's Pierre Poilievre doing the same thing, and I would imagine Poilievre would be doing the same thing anyway in order to rebuild this country without selling us, um, is to negotiate opportunities elsewhere to parallel and rival the United States of America. And a lot of countries are doing that. I'm still certain that a lot of countries are watching what we're doing here because of our close proximity to the U.S. border. So I continue to encourage the Canadian government. I'm not calling it the Liberal government or the Conservative government. I'm calling it the Canadian government, working hand in hand with the provincial ministers to continue to build our country and dissolve that full dependency on the United States of America. I mean, we no longer want to be in a position that if Americans says jump, they expect Canada to say how high. That we have to change, whether it's on a military terms, economically, whatever the case is. Foreign policy, that's got to stop. It's just been way too much of that the last 10 years. And I'm very hopeful and I'm very encouraged. And so far, I feel like a very proud Canadian, and I support the government. Just I've supported conservative governments before in the past. I've done so. I'm supporting this Canadian government. Hasn't pissed off my cornflakes yet. I'm still waiting to see what's going to happen with our defense spending, but I think that Carney's on a constructive path right now, even though he may take one step backward in parallel, as long as he takes 5 forward, and it seems like he's doing it. I think we're all going to benefit from this.
Yep. Let's go back to the comments. Nancy says, as a vodka drinker, I changed to iceberg vodka from Newfoundland. Love, love, love. That is really good. And I think their whole thing is that they actually do get the ice from the icebergs drifting through for the water that they
Yeah,
use. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and when you see some of those icebergs, it's something else. Okay, Monel says, Carney obviously not working alone. He's working with the other PMs around the country. If they're supporting him, except for, that one person that's out who cares about her, it's all good.
Mm.
And okay, she just added a couple of words here. Yeah, Carney is not working alone. He's obviously working with the other PMs around the country. They're in agreement with him, except for that one left out in Alberta. They need to do what's right. There. Okay.
Gary, I got to drop off for a second, please.
Yep. Okay. All right. So the timing is great. We've really wound up that whole scenario of the Prime Minister's visit to Europe and also his handling of the tariff issue, the trade issue, and the fact that it now appears the logjam has been cleared. But man, oh man, regardless of what we come out with on the other end, again, we still have a little over 3 years to deal with the individual in the White House. And any day of the week, he can just wake up or at some point through the day decide, no, I'm not going to honor that agreement anymore. And we're back to where we started. So the diversification of our trading routes, really, really very, very much needed. Hopefully, it's going to help Canadian businesses to become even more established on the world markets and open up new markets for them, which in turn means they're going to be expanding and means more jobs and opportunities for Canadians right here at home. And there's absolutely no reason why we can hold our own and actually lead in a lot of areas as far as business is concerned. So, we're certainly no shrinking violets from that perspective. All right,
100%.
let's roll along here. Time's moving on. Coming up, the right to defend your home. But before that, I want to take a moment to encourage anyone thinking about jumping into video creation and or streaming, do it. And an app for helping you realize your dream is Ecamm. It's a Mac-only based app. You can create anything from a production standpoint, whether it's just recording something or live streaming or both and putting them on YouTube, TikTok, wherever. I use Ecamm for Night Talk and recommend it. You can get more info and a 14-day free trial simply by scanning the QR code, which I forgot to put up, sorry, or the affiliate link in the description below. Ecamm did not request nor pay for this recommendation.
Right, and I'm also using it. I'm also using it as well, along with Gary, along with other Canadian solutions. Gary, as you know, there was a recent home invasion in Lindsay, Ontario, in mid-August, has reignited the debate over defending your family and home from criminal invaders. According to Kawartha Lakes Police, they received a call at about 3:20 in the morning. They say the resident of a downtown apartment awoke to find an intruder in his apartment. The two tangled, and police say the intruder suffered life-threatening injuries as when airlifted to a Toronto hospital. Now here's the catcher. Police have charged the resident with aggravated assault and assault with a weapon. The suspected 41-year-old intruder is facing charges of breaking and entering, as well as possession of a weapon for dangerous purposes. Oh, and did I mention he was already wanted by the police for unrelated charges? Well, he is. So how far can you go to protect your home? And are our laws keeping up with the realities of today?
Wow. Now, this happened just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And in a small town in Ontario. And actually, I watched a video last night by Rebel News, and they're an organization that's really out there. Sometimes, they're not so far off the mark in their pursuit of a story. Other times, However, they are on top of this story. They're all over this story like stink on a monkey. And it, It's amazing. Now, according to police, as you indicated, they received the call about 3:20 in the morning, and this guy apparently awoke to find another individual in the apartment and armed. And apparently, the intruder used a window, and normally his daughter, the resident's daughter, would be sleeping in that bedroom.
Hmm.
Now, I've heard what he was armed with, what the intruder was armed with, but I don't have any confirmation of it. And the police, at least initially, did not release any information as to the type of weapon that he was armed with. Anyway, the resident was going to have nothing of this bozo, and they got into it. And again, I've heard what the weapon may be, but I haven't had that confirmed either. So I'm just not going to put that out there.
Are you speaking about what weapon the resident had?
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
Must be a hunter.
Could be. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, he proceeded to, shall we say, educate the intruder as to why he should not be breaking into someone's house at 3 o'clock in the morning and awakening an individual from a deep sleep. So much so that, as we said, they airlifted the bozo to a trauma
Toronto.
unit in Toronto. So he was in really rough shape. And to add insult to injury, he was already wanted by police.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now, Rebel News brought up a story from out west from about 4 or 5 years ago. And it was, I think, Alberta, Saskatchewan or Alberta. Anyway, same sort of scenario, only it was out on in like farmland, and some guy broke into this person's house. This person had his rifle, and he just, and they got into a fight. And as they were fighting, and he still had his rifle, they, I don't know, somehow it happened that the rifle went off and actually shot the intruder and killed him.
Mm-hmm.
And the Mounties came out, did their investigation, and they said, no charges here.
Self-defense.
Yeah. So why the local police department in that area of Ontario and the Crown prosecutors feel it necessary? Well, I'll tell you why. And if you just give me a minute here, we'll go back to the 2 split, get rid of that, and we'll bring this up. In the parts of the United States, there is what they call a castle doctrine, and that basically gives you the right to protect you, your family, and your property, and use whatever means is necessary. There is no legal castle doctrine in Canada. We don't codify it, what they call castle law. Self-defense is judged on a case-by-case basis as to whether the force was reasonable and proportionate. And apparently this is the basis that they're using, the Crown is using in Ontario, Lindsay, Ontario, is that the residents' response was over the top. Thin line of reasonableness. Use of force law requires force not escalate beyond what's necessary. Defensive acts turning into pursuit or excessive harm risk criminal liability, which then leads to political and social tension. Case highlights tensions between legal standards and public expectations of home protection, raising questions about clarity and fairness in self-defense law. And therein is the big hole in this whole case in Ontario right now, is the actual definition of reasonable and proportionate.
Yeah,
There is
what is that?
no there is no real guideline as to the definition of reasonable or the definition of proportionate. It obviously is just a wide open item
But
that is, I guess, really at some point defined by the judge in the case, and or the judge's instructions to a jury that may be involved in a case. But there's no real definition.
right, that's a tough one to define. Like when do
Well,
you back off, basically, right? I don't know.
yeah, like, what are you supposed to do? Get up in the middle of the night to some bozo and say, I could really beat the out of you, but I'm not going to because I don't want to be charged. It might not be reasonable or proportionate to that hunting bow that you're, pointing at me right now.
Yeah,
So go ahead and shoot me because it's probably faster and easier than me going through the legal system and trying to defend myself in the legal system after trying to defend myself and my family and my home
right.
at your hands.
Yeah,
This is wrong.
yeah.
This is wrong.
It's almost like the laws we have in place are basically saying to the defender in this particular case, you can't bring a gun to a knife fight.
Yeah.
That's what they're basically saying.
Yeah.
Well, what do you expect me to do? Bring a knife to a knife fight, or pull out a fork and scare the guy away? What do you do? I mean, you know what? When it comes to family, very, very difficult not to do what you need to do.
Exactly.
When it might come to property, some guy's trying to steal something, scare him off, do something, but don't. I'm not sure. In that situation, I don't know. It's an emotional thing because your adrenaline is flowing. Okay, so
Well,
there's a lot of reaction. 3:30 in the morning, being woken up and you see an intruder in your house, the adrenaline is flowing. I mean, I'll grab the first thing I can get and reach and use it if I have to. I really can't say if I'd be able to restrain myself and say, oh yeah, there is that one law that got passed, and I shouldn't be doing this and I shouldn't be doing that. You're dealing with a lot potential life in that situation here. I mean,
that's
you
right.
don't know how high or how buzzed out the guy in front of you is holding a knife or whatever he's holding, a crossbow or who the hell knows. You can't take a chance like that.
No.
And I get it. I mean, a store owner, for example, you get robbed. What are you going to do? Chase the person out the store with a gun and start firing at him because he stole your property? I mean, that is a whole different ballgame in terms of using common sense as opposed to somebody walking into your house. I mean, when somebody walks into the house, I don't know, man. I'm in all bets are off. I'll do what I need to do to defend my family and myself without question. Law be damned. That's how I
Yeah.
feel about it.
When you're surprised like that, Eddie, like, you know, coming out of a sound sleep, the adrenaline is going to be flowing and, it's going to be flowing at a high level. And when you get into situations like that and the adrenaline is flowing, like sometimes you just kind of black out for 30 seconds and like
Yeah, true
you don't
too.
even realize what you're doing or you don't even realize your own strength.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I don't give a damn. The minute you break into my house, you are violating my rights. Your rights go out the window because you're committing a crime. You may not
Hmm.
have been convicted of it yet in a court of law, but you are committing a crime. So your rights are out the window. And if I take it upon myself to beat upon you with a baseball bat
Hmm.
and drop you to your knees,
Until the
like,
cops show up.
yeah,
Done.
yeah.
Yeah,
So be it. Is that reasonable? I think so.
I think so too.
You know, but the other side of it is, if you're a police officer and you're in that situation, whether you're on duty or say you're off duty and somebody breaks into your house, your training is to take the gun, and if they're armed and they're making a threatening move in your direction, you take one shot, and that one shot is a kill shot. Period.
Right.
You're
Hmm.
not going to wound them. You're not supposed to wound them. You take the kill shot. So, and you know that there will be some bleeding hearts that will say, well, that's police brutality. No, it's actually a human looking after, trying to protect himself and
Right.
or his family.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So I'm sorry, like this guy getting charged for taking
Defending.
somebody who is a criminal to begin with, already established criminal, and bumping him to within an inch of his life. Well, like one thing that Danielle Smith said in response to that, because she was asked about that just
Oh,
after it happened, and I saw the clip, and it's like, well, if you don't want to get shot or beat up, then don't break into my house.
yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
It goes back
Well,
to common sense.
well, exactly. I was just going to say our show last week about common sense. Look, Gary, do I want the same laws that they have in Florida, where if somebody grins at you the wrong way, and if you feel threatened, you can blow his head off? No, that's not Canada. That's not the way we are. That's not civil. That's not a civilized way of behaving, and that's not common sense. We don't want that. But if there's an individual that's in your house, is the aggressor, has a weapon, you know what? All bets are off.
Yep.
Um, if some kid, I catch some kid in the doorway coming in, and he's caught completely off guard and takes off. Take off. I'm not going to beat you up. But if you come towards me, and that's a whole different ball game. So myself as a citizen, I'm using common sense. I'm not going to shoot the guy or kill the person that I just caught. But I have the right to do what I need to do in case the aggressor takes a step forward that I'm not comfortable with. And you know what? What happened in this particular situation? The homeowner, absolutely every right with the first of all, the individual already had a record, unbeknownst to the citizen, and second of all, who knows what this guy could have done? I mean, if they ended up in a tussle the way they did, obviously something did happen that started this tussle, no questions asked. And I'm with you. I just don't understand why the prosecutor in Lindsay has decided to lay charges against this citizen. Look, I've been to Lindsay. I houseboat in the area quite often.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful,
Yep.
beautiful little town. Picket fences. Where you want to raise a family. Everyone knows each other. Um, I just find it hard to believe that the local police official and the local prosecutor would press charges against it. You know what? Conduct an investigation. And it's almost like the charges were brought upon very, very quickly, in my opinion, way too quickly. Um, so it makes
Probably
me
because
feel
the guy
like,
had to be airlifted to Toronto.
okay, fair enough. You got airlifted to Toronto. Why don't you do a little bit of an investigation first before you charge
Yeah.
somebody? I mean, it's just wrong. There's just something wrong with this. I don't want the laws in the United States here by far, but by the same token, I think as individuals using common sense to protect our families, there's got to be leniency where you're doing what you need to do to protect your family. Protecting property, okay, that's a whole different thing. But when it comes to family, you know what? All bets are off. You step into my house, you're not going to crawl out if you take one step. If you take one step further, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, is that statement something that I might get arrested for later on? You know what? I'll deal with it later in the court of law. But there's
Yeah.
no way anyone's going to harm anybody in my family.
No, exactly. And, even your property. I'm sorry. Like, you have a choice as an individual to either stay on the right side of the law or step over that line and break the law, whether it's keying somebody's vehicle or whatever. But if you're caught doing it
Hmm.
and it happens to be the property owner and he does not or she does not take kindly to what you're doing and they, kick the snot out of you,
Yeah.
then so be it. You
Eh,
had a
well,
choice.
that's a perfect example, Gary. I mean, okay, so for example, you know what? You and I we go downtown somewhere. We watch a sports game or something, have supper, get into. We go towards our car and we see somebody trying to steal a wheel or scratching the side of my car, right? And I take exception to it and I lay a hand on the individual, right? Hey, what are you doing? Type of thing. Based on what's happening in Lindsay, because I put my hands on the individual that was doing damage to my car or
Yep.
stealing it, whatever, this individual can lay charges against me for laying a hand on him while he's stealing my car or stealing my tires. That there is something wrong with that picture. I didn't hit him. I didn't club him. I didn't whatever. But if just laying a hand on the individual to say stop or shove him or whatever the case is, I don't want to be afraid to get charges laid against me for protecting my property like that. So again, where does the common sense start and where does the common sense end? And where does the government get involved in dictating what common sense is and what common sense is not? It's a real fine line, okay? I mean, that's a loose example, but in a house, man,
Yeah.
totally different ballgame.
But here's the thing, Eddie. The common sense is this:
Yeah.
there are laws, and it's somebody else's property, and you go and you willfully destroy or damage someone else's property, or you break into their house. Again, I come back to you had a choice: either walk away and not do it, or go ahead and do it and be prepared for the consequences.
Correct.
It's just that simple. And our laws have not kept pace with the
Hmm.
way our society has evolved. I'm sorry. We between the way society has evolved and the fentanyl crisis and everything else, and digital
A lack of respect for
scams
the
and
law and the police officers and all that.
yeah. So the laws need to be toughened up, and in this particular case, I think we do need some kind of castle doctrine in this country, because
Hmm.
we are a country that there's still a portion of our population that lives in very, very rural areas, and in some cases, their closest neighbor is 5 miles away, kind of thing. When you get
Right.
out into the prairies, in particular,
Hmm. Hmm.
you're on your own. You're not going to have, if you have a call 911, you're not going to have a police officer at your door inside of 5 or 10 minutes. Well, hell, sometimes in the city you don't have it in 5 or 10 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's going to take a while for police to get to to get there to assist you. You're on your own.
Hmm.
So if I have no qualms with somebody doing what they feel they have to do at that point in time to protect themselves and their family and their
Hmm.
property,
Right.
whether it's a bicycle or the family or it makes, to me, it's all on the same level. You either adhere to the law or you break it. And if you break it, there are consequences. And in a lot of cases, the consequences, when it involves another person, may not really come out in your favor before you even have a chance to challenge it legally. And you know what? Too bad.
Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry.
I certainly hope in this particular case, even though they brought charges up against this homeowner, that once it does go to the court of law, um, that the common sense is going to prevail amongst the jury, amongst the judge. And you know what? Maybe as a result of this, we will bring in that cast a law. Sometimes you just need an example to happen in order for governments to react. So maybe,
Yeah.
maybe this will be the linchpin to move this thing forward a little further, and allow good law-abiding citizens and homeowners to be able to protect their families and their property. It's
Yeah.
just going to help.
Yeah. And apparently, Rebel News, they had hired a truck that has the screens on the outside
Okay.
and parked it in front of the police station and laying out video on the screens about this whole situation.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah, and driving it up and down the streets. But they're also raising funds for the victim, the resident, because he doesn't have a lot of money and he's going to
Oh
need a
yeah,
lawyer
lawyer
and
fees.
yeah, yeah. So they're raising money for him to help him out with any legal fees that are involved here
I'm sure
because he's charged.
this is not going to look very good for the local administration there, or the mayor of the town, or the local prosecutor, with all of this drama and media that's being attached to this incident. It's not going to bode well for them. So look, it is where it is right now, and I really really hope that they're going to look at this and say, you know what, there is no fault here. Apologies, Mr. Citizen. You know what, we just following our due process, and then hopefully they can move forward putting some sort of guidelines, in place that will defend, defend the victim properly.
Yeah. Now, Premier Doug Ford was just beside himself
Yeah.
when he heard about this. And here is Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre on it as well.
The law needs to be clear that if someone comes into your house uninvited to steal your property or harm your family, you need to be able to do whatever is necessary to stop them. And my message to the criminal thugs who are invading the homes of Canadians in unprecedented numbers because of Liberal laws is that you should be in serious danger if you go into someone's house illegally and try to harm them. If you don't want to be harmed, then don't invade someone's house and don't threaten their security. The law needs to be very clear that people have the right to defend their homes and their families against lawbreakers.
You know
I
what?
agree with him.
Yeah, I agree with him 100%. Everything there, except I kind of guffawed when he said liberal laws. I certainly hope he wasn't referring to people who support the Liberal Party of Canada. I hope he's basically using a good word in the Webster Dictionary, basically saying that the law is a little bit too liberal. Let's just leave it at that. But other than that, well said, Pierre.
Yeah. And hopefully this, I know we have a whole lot of things on the plate right now that are really very important to deal with. But, things like this, you just can't let this fester forever because
Yeah.
it's not going to go away. And every time something happens, it's going to go up a notch. And when you've got people on the streets and they're whacked out on fentanyl or whatever, 99, 100% of the time, you don't know what they're going to do. I read a recent story about a woman who at 5 o'clock in the morning awakened in the city center, not here in Montreal, in another city,
Right.
banging on the door and hollering. And she went to the door, she didn't open it, and just told the individual go away. Well, he kept coming around and banging on windows, and all of a sudden she heard this noise, and he had managed to get in through a window, again a bedroom window where normally a child would be, and I think the child was in with her mother, and guy cut himself, and there was blood all over the place. And she'd been calling the police and she said, now, again, when you're in a situation like that, emotions run high too. So what, 3 to 4 or 5 minutes may seem like a lifetime in a situation like that. 30 seconds will seem like a lifetime in a situation like that.
Hmm.
She was saying that she felt the 911 operator was getting upset with her because she kept calling back. Well, she was frightened.
Of
That's why she
course.
was calling
Yeah.
back. And, where are they? I need help right away, kind of thing. Anyway, police did arrive. The last I'd heard, I don't think they had caught the individual, but it was the mess of her place with the blood all over. And can you imagine? You'd have to get a special crew to come in and clean up that blood because you don't
Yeah.
know what it contains. Anyway, all I'm saying is I have no kind of empathy or anything else. You have the choice: either stay on the right side of the law or you cross the line. And when you do, and especially where it involves personal property and families and people protecting that, all bets are off. You get what you deserve and then some.
Well, what do you know, Gary? I agree with you again.
What can
Absolutely.
I say?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's wrap up the conversation on that one and move along. Up next, the self checkout chaos. But I have a question. Are you experiencing slow internet speeds, maybe even drop connection after drop connection? Still with a cable provider? Well, Eddie and I once shared your pain, but not anymore. We made the switch to eBox Fiber, pure fiber internet straight to your home, fast up and down speeds on a consistent basis. For more information, click the affiliate link in the description below. Use one of the promo codes for a special offer. Again, eBox did not request nor pay for this recommendation. All right. Now, a little more chaos in everyone's life. The self-serve checkout standoff. Are these terminals really making life easier, or are we just unpaid staff working for the grocery and other retail chains? Eddie?
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I mean, this follows up to our conversation last week about tipping and the pin machines that ask you to tip. This gets into my frustration level just as badly about being asked to tip for everything. I told you last week at the grocery store, I actually got asked for a tip while I paid for the my produce, and B, I had to pack the bag myself, and they still asked me for a tip. So just carrying on from that conversation, Gary, it's getting a little insane. I can understand efficiency. People are in a rush. They don't want to wait for a cashier and go check it out themselves. But the reason why people are getting frustrated and waiting in lines for a cashier because there aren't very many left. When
Mm-hmm.
you and I used to go grocery store or Walmart or who knows, God knows what, there used to be 10 checkout lanes or 15 checkout lanes, so you know what, you have to wait for 2 or 3 minutes. No big deal, right? um, and then all of a sudden, you're down to 2 cashier lanes, 3 cashier lanes if you're lucky, and the third one is actually also working as a manager of the place. And there you have one individual monitoring 10 to 15 self checkout lines. Okay. um, while I love adopting to new technologies and newer way of doing things, this is to me just an absolute cash grab for the merchant to reduce their overheads and their costs. Less people using technology. And personally, my wife and I will look at the 1 or 2 checkout lines that are available to us. If there's 1 or 2 people ahead of us, we will wait, because what we do is we look at each other and say, you know what, let's go to the checkout line that's manned, because that will sustain a person's job. Okay. And the way I see it, when there used to be 10 lanes there, that means that the chances are 7 jobs disappeared. Okay. Which I think is just extremely sad. Yeah, you know what? That's capitalism. Let's improve our margins. Let's ensure we have profitability. So let's use whatever means we can in order to minimize our manpower costs, which usually is 60 to 70% of operating costs in most places. But then when I go to the self-checkout line, there's a person there watching what I'm doing. And I've actually walked out with something I didn't realize I walked out with. And somebody asked me, hey, did you pay for that? And of course I say, well, yes, I did. Completely missed it. And then they kind of look at me like I'm some kind of criminal. Well, wait a minute. You're asking me to pack my own stuff when you should be packing it. And if I make a mistake, you give me a lip about it. I mean, the person obviously wasn't trained properly in customer care and speaking to me as if I made a mistake, not that I was looking at stealing this thing. So I don't know, Gary. You know what? I think there's got to be a better balance. Let me put it this way. If you had 10 checkout lanes manned by a human being, you know what? Cut back on half of them if you have to. Don't wipe them all out and force everybody to go into checkout lanes. Look at Walmart. I mean, Walmart is just a snake line to get to the checkout lanes, and there aren't too many people you can talk to there anymore. Our grocery store just in our neighborhood, Gary. I mean, I won't mention the store, but just around the corner. I mean, there's one lady manning a 10 item or less checkout lane. She's also manning the beer bottle return counter. She's also manning the cigarette counters, the lottery counter, and whatever else. And then you have one or two others that are working there. And then you have about 10 self-service checkout lanes. It's rather sad. And sometimes you'll even see a lady standing there at the checkout counter with nobody in front of her, yet there are people waiting in the self-checkout lane to get their stuff checked out. So I don't know, Gary. Am I old? Is my thinking old here?
No.
No.
I used them a bit when they first started to appear.
Right.
But I quickly discovered that, as I looked around, I came to the conclusion, like, why am I doing this at no charge? I have not noticed any kind of decrease in pricing overall in the store to compensate for me now having to do my own checkout and also my own packing. It's bad enough when you're doing your own packing, but at least you have a cashier who can push it through.
Right.
Why am I doing this? This is crazy. And I refuse to use them. And even more so because you're running into more and more situations where, because theft has gone up significantly with these machines, that they're watching it more closely. But like you say, sometimes a mistake can be made, but and it's not always you making the mistake. It could be the wrong code on the article, or it could even be something in, like, it wasn't coded into the system properly. That happens on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But you all of a sudden, when they inspect or challenge you, it's up to you to prove that you're not guilty. Like, wait a minute. I'm a customer. I'm here. Here's my slip. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, maybe let's double check the weight of that, or let's, check the, why am I even having this conversation? I'll just go to the checkout. And here's something, Nettie. As busy as our Costco is, because it's smaller, it's one of the smallest Costcos I've been in. Mm-hmm. It's, older, and the area has grown up so much, just even in the last 5 years. When you go into that store at peak times, look at the lineup for the self-serve checkouts and how slow it's moving versus the lineups for the cashiers that have
the man cashiers. Yeah.
Yep. and how quickly they're moving. And you kind of walk up and you think, "Oh God, I'm going to be here for," and first thing you know, bang, is your
You're
turn at the
there.
counter. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, you know, I just refuse. I've walked out of, and I'll just say it. I've walked out of Metro when the two cashiers at the far end, the cashiers at the far end that are usually staffed,
Yeah.
have not been staffed, and they only had the one at the other end where the service counter is, and now they're taking bottles and everything. And that had a lineup, and there may have been 2 or 3 people at the self. I've just said, no, I'm out of here. See ya. I didn't even bother going into the store. I just walked around and out the door, kind of thing, because I am not using those self-serve checkouts. Every time I do, I end up with the red light, and it like
Hmm.
it says, you're a slave to the red light
Right.
on more than one occasion, and I just don't need that in my life.
Well, you know what got me more is the attitude of the agent that was there, in a
Hmm.
very accusatory manner. I was buying some gifts for my grandkids, and it was one small toy. It was actually a little bubble machine, a little handgun bubble machine that
Yep.
I had neglected. I mean, it was buried under everything else, and the almost I felt like I was almost getting scolded. I'm a grown adult. Treat me like a grown adult. Excuse me, sir, but we just seem to notice. Can we just check? And maybe there was a mistake, something like that. But no, it was more accusatory. That really burned me, and I try to avoid going through it as much as I can. If the lineup is not, you have you have the patience of a saint that you can wait that long. Good for you. I wish I could do that. We when we have an opportunity and the lineup is not too long and you have a checkout counter that's manned by someone, we prefer to go there to keep
Yep.
to support in them being able to keep their jobs because people need to work.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. And like I say, I have not gone into any store, retailer, where they've installed the self-serve checkouts and noticed any appreciable difference in
In the
pricing.
price, correct?
Like if you're going to expect me to even like, bring my own bags and check myself out, pack my own bags, then I'm looking for at least a 15 to 20% discount on
Discount.
everything in the store.
Hmm.
Or take it off the total. You know, once my order is totaled up, take 15 or 20% off.
Right. Yeah.
Otherwise,
Something.
I
Something.
am. You know what? Maybe what somebody should do in Quebec's a great province for filing class action suits.
It is.
Um, so maybe somebody in Quebec should start a class action suit against all retailers with self-serve terminals and center it around the fact that you are working for nothing in violation of the labor laws,
Good point.
because that's
you've
what you're
given
doing.
you've given this some thought, haven't you?
Yes, I have. It
But it's
just,
true. You're absolutely bang on.
it's a violation of labor laws. You're working for nothing. So why not? I mean, and the red light hostage frustration, yep, that drives me crazy.
Hmm.
Customers as unpaid staff, that's what they are. Now, when they first started rolling them out, they were efficient in theory, but in practical use, no, no. And then a survey back last year, 60% prefer cashier lanes for larger purchases. I prefer them for even small purchases.
Hmm.
And 70% report issues, mostly barcode and weight errors. That's a payments study that goes back to
Wow.
2023.
I didn't realize it was that high.
Yep,
Goodness.
yep. Well, you know what? It's humans punching in the barcodes.
Yeah.
And you know what they say about computers, Eddie? Garbage in equals
Garbage in,
garbage out.
garbage out. Yeah.
So, yeah. It's the same as AI. This is why, AI is a wonderful thing, but we don't want to put a whole lot of weight into it,
Yeah.
especially at the moment, because it's still learning and it's humans feeding it in. So,
Well, you know what? I can you just imagine? Can you just imagine a situation where one goes and scans a case of pencils, right? Scans the barcode, and up comes a pair of women's lingerie, and you're paying for that. Like you see crazy things like that all the time. Happens with vegetables. I mean, you'll
yep.
scan a barcode or enter a barcode
What,
for
they wear
carrots.
lingerie? They put lingerie on vegetables?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You scan carrots and it's charging you for a watermelon. Like it happens. It
I
does
know.
happen, right?
Yeah. But yeah, actually, I was reading something earlier today
Hmm.
of some research, and retailers are now starting to either change the system as far as the self-serve checkouts are concerned to make them hopefully less annoying and more efficient. While some of them are actually now starting to do away with them because of issues and customer complaints.
Right.
Customers are not using them; they're refusing to use them.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's just too many things that can go wrong, and especially from when you've got a store that's really pushing theft prevention. Like, you know what? I don't even want to handle it. Once I put it on the counter at a checkout, that, it then becomes the store's responsibility. You want to see if my cart's fully empty? Go ahead. I don't care.
Right. Right.
But it's on you. It's not on me. And
Hmm.
that's, I don't even want to get involved with them, and I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to hear some morning getting up and all of a sudden hearing that class action suit has been launched in the province of Quebec over unpaid work at retailers, forcing customers to use self-serve checkouts.
Yeah. Yeah.
You heard it here first.
We heard it there first. Do we have any last comments from people out there?
Nope, we're cleaned up on the comments. Wait
Clean it.
now. Oh no! Wait! We have one here. Here we go. Manel comes in. It's not okay that we have to scan everything. We have to wrap everything, but yet grocery prices just keep going higher.
She's right.
Absolutely correct. Yep.
She's right.
Yep. On that
All
one.
right, Gary, and it's time to wrap up this edition of Night Talk. The conversation on we should be having honest, unfiltered, and Canadian.
Yep. Coming up next week, a special edition of Night Talk. It's our first anniversary, and we do have a couple of special announcements. Don't miss it.
Yeah. And the reminder to like, share, subscribe to help expose our stream and channel to more people like you. Also, if you're watching one of the replays, let us know your thoughts by leaving a comment below. I'm Eddie Takalik. Good night.
And I'm Gary MacDonald. Night Talk will return in 7 days, and that's the special anniversary edition with those special announcements. Make sure you're here. And by then, we will have all of our little technical glitches worked out. We had a few of them tonight, but we got through it. We made it, and we'll have all of that worked out as well. Be here next week. That's all I can say. Thanks for watching. Good.